of that gives you the foundation of how a multifamily runs. And that's a really great way for you to learn to become a GP. And so I often recommend that a person become an LP, a limited partner, before they become a general partner, because that's where you really begin to learn.
Welcome to the Whitecoat Syndicator podcast, where high-income professionals reveal the practical steps on how to buy back your time and build your generational wealth through real estate investing. And now, let's get to today's episode. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Whitecoat Syndicator podcast, where we hope to educate you and other Whitecoat professionals on how to get started in real estate investing, specifically into real estate syndications. Today, we have a treat of having Dr. Rebecca Moore, who's with us going to be on the podcast today. Dr. Moore holds a doctorate in clinical psychology, and she started her company in 2012 with her husband, Warren. They started Starboard Equity with the purpose of real estate investing to become financially independent. With over 10 years of investing in a resume, Rebecca has taken charge of over 5 syndication acquisitions and owns over 2,000 apartment units. Since then, Rebecca has been a featured speaker all over the real estate world to inspire others that they can do the same. Hey, so Rebecca, welcome to the podcast today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So overall, I know that we all got started with humble beginnings. Can you walk us through, what your life was like before you started real estate investing?
Yeah, you bet. That's a fun story. So again, as you stated, I am a clinical psychologist. And when I first learned about real estate, I guess you could say, I was working at the Naval Hospital. I am married to a now retired naval officer. And Warren, my husband, he started buying single family homes in each place that he was stationed, or in many places. He didn't buy in San Diego, darn it. But he did buy in Virginia, and he bought down in Corpus Christi. So he already had a few houses when I met him. And then when he was stationed in the Pentagon again, after he met me in San Diego and we moved back to Virginia, we bought yet another house in Virginia. So we had an accumulation of at least 3 single family homes at that time. So when we were ready to get closer to Warren's retirement from the Navy, we started saying to ourselves, gosh, what are we going to do with all of these houses? Are we going to sell them all together and buy ourselves a retirement home? Or are we going to buy like a 4-plex, 6-plex, 8-plex, something along those lines? And so we started going to real estate expos to expose ourselves to what people do in the sense of, let's say, buying a 6-plex or an 8-plex, because we really didn't know. And what we found was some people talking about larger apartment syndication, something that we didn't know anything about. Awesome. So that's where we got our first glimpse and found ourselves a mentor that taught us how to do real estate syndications.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people always talk about mentors. I definitely believe in a mentor because they can super shortcut you through all the pitfalls, kind of hold your hand along the process. So I guess in terms of finding your mentor, I guess how did you find him?
I agree with you. Mentors are key. And those of us that you're really talking to in this podcast, we all, most of us have a higher education, right? Mm-hmm. They're mentors to us. They're simply teachers, right? And we've had tons of them in our lives. And then we've had supervisors. Well, that's what a mentor is. Mm-hmm. So I went to, again, these real estate expos and found myself that mentor, AKA teacher. And so these people gave their presentations, and the person that I went with, I found that he was very authentic in my mind. He sounded like he knew what he was doing. And in fact, luckily, he had quite a good background and reputation. And you can really go with your gut and see if this person really knows what they're talking about and if they have the materials that you're looking for. I think personality match is
Hmm.
helpful. As all of us, again, with a higher education kind of know, if for me in my world, my dissertation chair, we got along well enough. But I know that some other folks, they didn't get along so well, and that's never a fun match. You want to have somebody who matches your personality as much as possible, because this is something that you want to enjoy.
Absolutely, because I guess you kind of put it as like dating, right? You can't get married to everyone right off the street. You have to work your way into the relationship, kind of be on alignment, and yeah, give it a try, right? Because at the end of the day, like you could meet as many people as you want, but unless commit to one, and commit to one, like kind of date them for a while, like that's where it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of online, I didn't even realize the world of syndications existed. And so here we are on this podcast. There's lots of podcasts that talk about syndication, and going online, you can find lots of mentors there too. So you can sort of pick and choose.
Definitely. And so, Rebecca, I know, so with all listeners out there, with the syndication, there's mainly two types of partners. You have the general partners who do all the heavy lifting, and the limited partners are the people who bring the capital, and they kind of they help carry out the business plan just by providing capital. Now, Rebecca, I know that you have been a limited partner on a number of deals, but a lot of people they might not feel so confident about handing money over to a general partner. I guess um in your words, I guess what made you comfortable, I guess, becoming a limited partner and kind of giving your funds over to a general partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've even done a series of webinars
Oh,
myself about
mhm.
uh, many of the questions that you might want to ask someone.
Great.
So what's great about, again, the podcast online, getting with a mentor and a group, like when you go to meetups or you become part of a mentor's group of students, that's where you're learning and becoming friends with other people who are GPs. So the general partners who are doing the deal. And for you to become a limited partner, especially in the beginning, is a great, great way to learn. So that's how I started. I met some folks who were much more experienced than I was. And I got to learn the lingo of multifamily, even calling it multifamily, right? I mean, usually we just call them apartments, right?
Yep.
So we learn about the different classes of apartment buildings, A, B, C, and D. We learn why we want to be a partner in, let's say, an A class versus a C class, because there are different reasons why we would. And so investing in one of those types of apartments with a GP, what we're going to get to know is how they operate. And so that means, how do they go about purchasing that building? How do they go about getting all the money? And that's us LPs putting down the down payment. Then, once they get the property under operations, I guess, they get it closed, then they're going to start implementing their business plan. And as an LP, you get to watch the operator begin to operate this building. And every month, typically,
Mhm.
that person will send you an operations outline of what they're doing on the property. They're going to send you all the financials, and you're going to learn how to read the financials of an apartment building. And all of that gives you the foundation of how a multifamily runs. And that's a really great way for you to learn to become a GP. And so I often recommend that a person become an LP, a limited partner, before
Mhm.
they become a general partner, because that's where you really begin to learn.
Definitely, I really appreciate, being able to see how it runs, from the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
But even before you even consider being a general partner, because I know that as a general partner, that requires a lot of your time and commitment. And
Mm-hmm.
as a limited partner, the advantage of that is, you get to let your money work for you. And then you get to watch how, experienced operators actually operate. And, in the future, if you wanted to jump on a GP team, Definitely, it would be an option, but kind of getting a peek behind the scenes as a limited partner, that's a great way to begin. So,
Agreed.
yes, and Rebecca. So I know, as a doctor, most doctors they really like to be in charge and be in control. I guess what were the things that helped you kind of release control and to become a limited partner and to actually invest that money into a syndication?
Well, when you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, it's learning from somebody who knows. We've all gone through that as we have learned from those professionals who taught us.
Mm-hmm.
So here it's opening up the books.
Yep.
And that, in this case, is the financials. This is learning from the professional who has gone before us. And so you can do that one time, you can do that 10 times. It really depends on what you uh, desire yourself. So, or how quickly you want to learn. So, doing it once can be perfectly fine. Sometimes, if you are close with that GP, you can even request to be on the asset management phone calls.
Mm.
That really depends. Some people allow that, some people do not. But for your second deal, you can become the GP. It really all depends on how much control you want to have. Now, again, if you want that kind of control, you also have to have the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Definitely.
many of us professionals don't have that right away.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Another one I could definitely appreciate, like but when you're not trading your time for money to actually make your income,
Mhm.
the sacrifice is gonna have to come from somewhere else. If you're not sacrificing time from work, you're
Mhm.
sacrificing time from family. And like at the end of the day, is that really worth it for you? I'm really glad that you brought all this up. And so I guess from here, I guess what's next for Starboard Equity?
Yes. So, what is great is that we have been able to acquire many buildings back to back to back this past year.
So
And
great.
so, getting those up and running and cash flowing is what is on our plate. And we've realized that we love to be able to be in more control and to be the asset managers of our buildings, because we want to be able to uh, give to our investors and be the boss, as you were just sort of talking about, have that kind of control in order to be hands-on and do the best for our buildings. And so I think that we will be definitely looking not only in Dallas and in Houston, but also maybe spread out to getting over to your side of town, more so in the maybe in the Phoenix or Tucson area as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, perfect. And
Mhm.
so, right now, we're getting towards the end of the podcast. If there was one actionable thing that listeners can do today to get started with investing into a real estate syndication, what would you recommend that be?
Oh, and from starting out from scratch,
Right from scratch.
then I think that people would want to begin to get online or get with friends who are already working in syndications, get to know, I guess, what their operating philosophy is, to get to know the people who are doing it and find out who's a good fit for you. There are lots of people out there. There are lots of philosophies of buying and syndicating, and find out who's a good fit.
Definitely, guys. So here you heard from Rebecca. Like, now is the time to really go out there and network. Find out how people work and what they're working on, how they work, and if you can jump on and provide value in any way. That's a golden piece of advice, Rebecca. And for the last question, how can people reach out to you?
Oh, great. Yes. Well, I can be found at Rebecca at starboardequity.com. Or, of course, you can look us up at starboardequity.com and come join our club. And by joining our club, you can find out about everything that Starboard Equity is doing. We'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Well, you know what, Rebecca, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It was a great interview. Thanks for educating our listeners today here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Then this is the Whitecoat Syndicator. Everybody have a good rest of your day, okay?